Was poppin', was poppin', was poppin'. Welcome, Nicky and Moose. I'm Nicky. That's Moose. What's up, Moose?
What up, y'all?
And welcome to episode 101.
Hey.
Difficult to say now. We're in the hundreds now. We're in the hundreds. And that's what this podcast is about. The journey, the lessons, the ups, the downs of how we got to 100 episodes. How we monetize, how do we produce this? What is our workflow? What is the, when we don't feel like it? We're going to talk about it all. Moose, how are we feeling about this episode?
Man, I'm very excited. You just said it, the journey to 100, and it's starting to sound a little different saying it, 101. It's going to take some getting used to hearing it, but no, it's been a lot of fun, man, a lot of learned lessons. I'm ready to dive into it.
Imagine when we had to say 1,000 and something. That's crazy. Sheesh. Let's get into this intro.
2 kids from Queens, cut from a different cloth. Now joining forces, helping you to elevate your personal brand. Yeah, I'm talking about Nicky and Moose, bringing you a never-before-seen perspective into the mindset, the mentality, the behaviors, the driving force, but more importantly, the stories behind the people and brands that you know and love the most.
And of course, this episode is powered by ECAMM Live, okay? ECAMM Live is an all-in-one live streaming platform that also is showing love to the podcast world because this whole podcast is done through ECAMM. Everything from the video, the audio isolations, the transitions, the whole production of it is done through ECAMM Live. So if you want a 14-day trial just on us, go to nickyandmoose.com/ECAMM, ECAMM, and we got you on the 14-day trial. But first and foremost, Moose, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. Back at it with another one of these episodes, and yeah, it's I'm just grateful, to be honest with you. I think getting to 100, there's a lot of good things happening in both on and off camera, or both in business and personal. So I'm excited to be at it and continuing giving the people some more value.
I don't know if in the next 100 we'll get a little bit more of Moose from a personal side, but we're rooting for 150. We're rooting for 150.
I was actually thinking about it.
I promise you, people, we're going to get at least a workout regimen or something. I went to the gym. Oh, did you? Personal. Hold on.
I posted a workout video, though. You seen that? I posted a little workout something. No, I'm getting there, though. I'm getting there. I found myself wanting to talk more on some personal stuff. Like, I'm getting more in tune with my feelings and my emotions. And I'm like, okay, I see what's happening. I have a heart. And,
right.
No, I'm getting there. I'm getting there soon.
So follow him on the gram then. If you want,
check me out, yo.
Yeah. Follow him on the gram. He's active, people. He's active. And he's sharing a little bit more. Now on the podcast, 150. All right, 150. All right, I'm going.
Yeah.
I just want him to be like, I bought new shoes. What? Wait.
Yeah.
Look at that. We just little by little, people.
You know what? That's what I'm gonna do. Next week, starting next week,
okay.
I'm gonna share a highlight of my week. How about that? When you ask me the question, it's 100. You know what I'm saying? Like 101.
Wow.
It's growth. She said
another one.
Wow. I love it.
Look. Oh my goodness. Well, besides Moose giving us more at 150, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about this before we were recording. I had an interesting week. A certain podcast came out. Shout out to that podcast. But I acted like a typical female for 3 seconds. And I didn't appreciate it. Yeah, it was only 3 seconds. It was only 3 seconds. Because I'm big, and anybody would know that no matter how I look, sound, whatever, I'm going to put out content, especially if I say something fire. So first lesson is no matter what, just put out the content, right? However, comma, this particular podcast, and if you want to see which one I'm talking about, we put it on our YouTube community tab, shouting them out, but in a good way. But their video editor is trash, okay? Just publicly say it there too, because you're not going to make somebody 100 pounds heavier. I'm pudgy. I'm not that. So, that was my week of dealing with it and throwing shots at them because that wasn't cool. And they never fixed it. But it was cool. People, if you have, this is what I say. If you bring on a guest, make sure they look their best. Don't make them look crazy.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
Just don't make them look crazy. We don't make people look crazy. All we ask is don't make us look crazy. I was feeling the way. I was. Yeah. But anyways, let's get into this journey because 100 episodes is huge. You didn't really hear from us at 100. You heard from Toby. Shout out to Toby. That was a great interview. Yeah. The response from it has been really good. But we had to break down, and we actually have some questions from our listeners, right? Because I asked them, yo, what do you want to know from us about this 100? But I want to talk about first and foremost highlights on our journey of, to 100 and, well, I was about to say to 101. Look at me. Just let's talk current.
Counting
101. Right. Let's talk about highlights as far as what we thought maybe podcasting was and what it really turned out to be. I think that'd be a really cool start. And then we can get into the monetization. We can get into the workflow. We can get into all that. So, Moose, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a tremendous learning curve, and even probably a learning opportunity is probably a better way of saying it, because I had no idea that podcasting was as big as it is today or now that we know. I think when we first did it, I talk all the time that we started almost by accident. It wasn't something that it was talked about or planned or intentional, but it just was the next logical thing to do. And so we started to find out more about it. So to see the opportunity and where media in general is heading, new age media, as I would like to call it, podcasting, I would have to say, is definitely one of the top ingredients to what new age media will be and what it is today. So, of course, for me, and I'm sure for you as well, it feels like we got in at the right time. Like they say, the best time to plant the tree was 5 years ago. The next best time is today. And I feel that we started at a time where we were unsure, but it just made sense, and we kept going. And now we're making the adjustments that are needed. So on that, I will say one of the highlights that is probably one of the main lessons to take from our journey, and I hope for those of you who are listening or watching can apply it too, is that you can start off on the quote unquote wrong foot because you're absolutely unclear of what it's going to be and how it's going to look and what are we going to talk about and who are we going to serve. But if you're in an industry, and we're talking podcast, content, media, Nicky's been adamant about saying that word, without content, you don't have a brand. So obviously you want to be dabbling in this space, but you can change, and I think for us, we've shown that we have the courage to change because we started with the breakdowns, and it was I went back to our very first video uploaded on YouTube on the channel, and it was the J. Cole video. And that started a sequence of breakdowns that, we took from Facebook and brought onto YouTube. And then we made a pivot from that.
That was a good debate, by the way. I remember
that. Yeah.
We didn't do many debates after that. It was like I created a whole playlist, and then we didn't debate about anything.
Yeah. We started seeing more eye to eye after that one. That was like a very nah, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. I was just watching that today, but no, I'm just saying, I think to go from that, it just shows you that there are no real rigid rules that you have to follow. You just, as a creator, have to have the courage to change.
Right.
And change strategically and trust that the people will follow, the people will stay engaged. So when we left from the breakdowns, I'm sure there were people who were saying, damn, but I want the breakdowns.
Right.
And then when they see what we're doing now, they follow along and like, oh no, I'm rocking with this. I'm actually getting the most trending and relevant news or information that's related to my journey, my brand, or my business. And so you as the creator just have to have the courage to make those moves and trust that your audience will follow. So one of the highlights for us, I will say, is us making that move or making that pivot and not getting stuck in that rabbit hole where we were going to run out of trending, relevant, influential personal brands to continue doing this deep research on and hoping that they said enough information in their interviews. You know, it was almost a ticking time bomb. But when we moved on to what we're doing now, we have something to say every single week.
Yeah. And because of that, some of the things that are like that I Am Athlete clip that we've done is still bringing up like a whole lot of traffic for the podcast. So I think the highlight for me, one is that we're creating timeless content, right? Where, yes, we will talk about some of the things that are trending, but we're realizing also that we're creating evergreen information that can last for years to come, right?
Yeah.
That's one of them. And I want to get into that maybe deeper later. But the one of the highlights was the power of audio making you a global brand. Like, once we started seeing, okay, Finland, New England, whatchamacallit, Thailand, Dominican Republic, Trinidad and Tobago, all these different places, not just cities and states, but countries, Canada, like Australia, like listening to our podcast. And this is all through audio. This is not looking at video. And we know that video is king for the most part, what everybody says. But going into a platform that we really weren't sure about and having a global impact to some way, shape, or form is crazy to me. Like, that had to be one of the highlights to that. Now, I want to change it into that remote podcasting versus in person, right? And how we made our decisions and what's next to come to that, right? And clearly, if you are watching this, you may not know this if you're hearing this, but if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're watching this from, we're not in the same location, right?
Yeah.
And it originally started because of the pandemic, where we couldn't be in the same location, right? But even though we couldn't be in the same location, me doing the research on other remote podcasts, they would have just a solid look, and it looked like they were remote. Like, it just stayed the same way. And for me, it was important to think of, how do I create a experience on a virtual standpoint that doesn't even make you feel that we are on two different places, right? That the conversation flows over and over again. There's an experience between videos and people, but it's all done virtually, right? And shout out to ECAMM Live, because the way we do the virtual podcast is through ECAMM Live, but we have dibbled and dabbled in the in-person. And for me, I'll say that could be a future goal, but it started to be a further future goal once we won that award of Best Virtual Podcast. I was like, oh, there's a whole lane to this. Oh.
Wow.
Why don't we dominate that lane? So for me, I think from a virtual standpoint, if we're talking about pros, from a virtual standpoint, you don't have to leave your house if you don't want to, right?
That's right.
If you want to do the studio thing to have a certain look, cool. But you don't have to leave your house, right? It takes about an hour or even less, depending how long your podcast is, because all you have to do is turn on your equipment. Here you go. That's it. Whereas if you did it in person, there's a whole setup situation. What if your guest is late? What if this person's late? Like, you're not wasting time from what you really have to do in life. You're not going out of your way to do a virtual podcast, right? And three, for me as a pro, is more of you start to get comfortable being in front of the camera, because that's all you like. It's just you, right?
Yeah.
You start, there's no, for at least for me, there's no overwhelmed feeling of, am I doing this right or wrong? Because there's no true audience. It's just me, right? Moose is over there, but Moose is over there in a whole nother state. You feel me?
Right.
Like,
literally.
right. So I think the camera confidence, once you continue to do virtual podcasting for a while, truly helps. Because in person, I noticed you just look at the person that you're talking to.
Yeah,
You don't necessarily have to look at the camera. You just look
For
at
sure.
the person. And so this skill set of getting that camera confidence now transfers yourself to your online presence on social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're feeling more comfortable doing it. Where in a in-person one, you may not get those same reps, as far as I got to look at the camera and I got to talk to people, got to make sure they feel connected, even though we are not in the room with you. I got to make sure I'm looking at you in, eye level kind of situation. And in the audio experience, just making sure that there is no hiccup between what we do on video and what we do in audio. So that I would say those are my three pros. The only con is tech issues. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But I'm gonna leave that one to you. I'm gonna leave that one to you.
Yeah, we gonna skate over that lightly, just because we tried hinting at it. We started there, and then it was just do. It's like, oh boy, not even talk about it. So yeah, but no, again, I talked about learning curve in the beginning. But of course, for those of you who are familiar with Nicky's journey a lot more, that's her sweet spot. She's comfortable. She utilizes these tools and cameras and the equipment to produce and edit and do everything that she does. Where me, on the flip side of it, I'm not the greatest when it comes to, some of these things. I can work my computer to about its fullest functionality, but that's about it. But making sure or knowing the difference between what looks good and what doesn't look good, I think that is probably one of the things that I had to learn. And you want to have a certain taste for what you would like to see happen. So I definitely have come a long way in understanding aesthetic and what do you want it to look like, and what is good lighting and what is bad lighting, and what does it mean to have too much lighting.
Right.
Those are all things, right? We joked about, when we first started, and I had the little reading lamp that I was using as a light. It was just crazy. But I also will say, man, don't be cheap, and don't be cheap in the sense that don't just use what you have laying around the house, hoping to get a professional setup, because there is professional equipment for what you see as a professional setup.
Right.
And no matter what you have laying around you, it's not going to be, or it's not going to help you produce the same level of quality that a professional setup would help you to produce. So I think even that was something that I had to learn, right? It's like, oh, wait, there are specific mics for podcasting, and there are specific cameras that do this depending on the distance and all of these. So it's like, there's just that information that I think you would want to learn, not to get you overwhelmed, but definitely speak to someone who understands that, who can take the information that you have about your current space and what you want so that they can help you to create it. The worst thing to do is to finally find that expert and go to them and say, oh, I don't know. I just want something that looks good. It's like, you got to know what you want too.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact. I think, well, let me give some air horns on that because that was fire. But I think we could also talk about real quick the equipment that we use, because we didn't go cheap. We didn't go cheap. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
Now I won't say necessarily go the same route if you can't afford it. Let's disclaimer. Don't spend the bag if you don't have it. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's start there. I think the reason why we went the route we did, and I'm going to list some of the equipment, is because we understood if we are going to take something serious, that we might as well invest in the best equipment, right? And there was a process. Like, we did the Facebook Lives first, right? So actually, I'll leave that how the podcast came about after this part. I will say that. Yeah. But we went through a journey of, okay, let's use what we already have, right? Between the mics and realizing the ups and downs about the mics that we use, the lighting we had, right? The cameras we had, to the point where, okay, let's take this serious. So here's a quick list of the podcast equipment that Nicky and Moose uses. Okay. 1, we both have Sony A7Cs now. Okay. Did we start with that? No. But we both have that now, right? I use the Stream Deck to kind of produce the show while you see it, like from different videos and everything is all in a click of a button. We both use the Rodecaster Pro. Now, they do have a Rodecaster Pro 2, and that looks fire. So if you want to get the second one, go have at that. Moose uses a Shure mic. Do you remember the model?
Yeah, the SM7B.
Okay. He uses that, which is the Michael Jackson mic, right? We call it the Michael Jackson because that's what he recorded on. And that's what majority of the podcasters use, which almost makes me be like, okay, let me get one, but I don't want to, right? I use the RE20 mic, which I call the Joe Budden mic, because that was the only person that I used to watch use it, but I've seen more people use it. But I use the RE20, right? You use for lighting, what do you use for lighting? The ring light?
I have 2 ring lights. Yeah. So these, I believe, are 20-inch ring lights. Mm-hmm. So I have 2, just depending on when we're recording. So if you'll notice, sometimes when we record during the day, because I have the windows behind me, I'll have to close the shades and put up the lights. But at night, I can, of course, let me adjust my ISO. I would adjust my ISO and I can use the light not as bright, just because of the, when it's darker behind me. So, yeah.
Right. And I use GoBox and a bunch of Hue lights and some other light. I don't know what that's one called, but there's another light, little small, I think it's the aperture ones. Yep. All that. These are, and of course, ECAMM Live. Of course. But I'm saying all this because we are also going to list that in our show notes and descriptions for you guys. So those who are on the podcast journey with us, or who want to start a podcast, and you're like, yo, I want to look exactly like Nicky Moo. I'm not even playing. Like, either that's going to be the goal, or I want to start off like that. We want to give you that kind of list for you. So I wanted to make a little quick thing for people, because I wish
it's important.
I wish people did that as well. Yeah. When I was, it would make it easier.
Sure.
it would have
For
made it
sure.
easier.
Yeah. Knowing what we needed in the beginning, that would have been a heck of a lot easier. But no, that is important.
I do want to talk about the business side before I get into anything else. I want to talk about the business side. I'm gonna let you lead that off, but
Yeah.
there is a whole business world for podcasting, and I think when we went to podcast movement, it opened Moose's eyes a little bit more to no, this is a real world.
Yeah.
We out here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool because podcast movement showed me the big picture vision of what business looks like for podcasters. And, I think I might have said it publicly, or probably I said it on ECAMM's live, but what I realized is that it really is a matter of a numbers game.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people who do business in podcasting, they're not necessarily concerned about just making their own podcast the best that it can possibly be. They're really trying to scout talent and bring people with large followings and take care of their back end so that they can get a collective or let's just say a combination of shows that can produce numbers for them. And then they can take that and go out and pitch for advertisers. So that's when I started to understand the game of podcasting a little bit differently, because I said, it's sometimes on that level, it's not just about the power of one individual show. It's the power of the collective network, because instead of saying, hey, Nicky and Moose has 10,000 downloads a month, well, if we have 5 other shows and say each of them do 2,000 and we do 10,000, well, we can say, hey, our network does 20,000 downloads. And the reason why is because the advertiser doesn't care if you do 2,000 and the other one does 18, or if you do all 20 by yourself. They just want to know how many people how many people are you getting their product or service in front of? Right. So that ultimately is what it's about. So I started to understand that side of the business, which of course kind of leads us to one of the main ways in which you can make money or develop a business from podcasting, and that is through sponsorships, right? Whether it's different companies that want to promote their product or service by getting it in front of your audience. That is one of the main ways to do so. Directly through sponsorships. So another one that we came across, and it actually kind of started a unique journey for us, was speaking events, right? And that, although what we did with ECAMM was slightly different, but you are going to be compensated by companies or those who are hosting events and conferences to make an appearance at their event or at their show. And of course, you can be compensated for that, right? They're going to cover your room and board or your travel expenses, as well as a fee for you to be there. And that can vary, of course, based on, just your demand and the level of credibility that you bring to the stage. So that was also another one that you wouldn't necessarily think would be available to you through podcasts, because the podcast is just between you and your co-host, or maybe you by yourself. Yeah. But that is an extension of the opportunities that reveal themselves to you from the podcast. But I know, of course, there are some media and community. I'll let you maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So another way, and I won't go straight to the media and community just this second, but affiliates, right? So if you've heard, if you heard the audio experience of the podcast, you probably heard ECAMM, and you probably heard maybe like ConvertKit, right? And these are affiliates. We don't necessarily own these products, right? But because we can promote it, whoever purchases it, we get a percentage, right? So off the gate, if you're starting a podcast, you don't necessarily have to have sponsorships and deals and everything like that out the gate to make money. Off of your first one, you can look at affiliates, right? And the very basic one, of course, is like Amazon, but look at any of your favorite softwares, any of your favorite brands. They have affiliate programs. Even some of your favorite entrepreneurs, they're selling something, they'll do an affiliate program quick. When we had Carter, we had the ebook that he had, we had an affiliate for that, right? So you want to you want to look when you're starting or even in the process of monetizing your podcast, or not even your podcast, maybe just any type of content that you have. Go look at affiliate marketing. Sell something that you don't necessarily have to own the inventory, have to truly manage, but you get a percentage because people do cherish and value your audience, right? So that's one. Of course, because we've created a video podcast as well as the audio, right? We monetize on YouTube, right? So our full episodes and the clips we're very strategic with because we're able to do YouTube AdSense. So with each video, we monetize on those videos. So when you're creating something, always put video in it because YouTube is still one of the highest places that creators get paid from a video standpoint, right? Another way to monetize is, of course, I should have said this first, your own products and services.
That's right.
Right? By creating a podcast, you are creating authority, right? You're building trust, and this is your own platform. So you could promote your own stuff, whether you have a book, whether you have a course, whether you have merchandise, whether you have an event, whatever your products or service is, you can use this platform to say, hey, get this. It's a perfect place to generate leads because people are listening to you for over 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. So they're locked in. So if you continuously talk about something, then they're like, oh, snap. Let me grab that. Let me get that. Right. And the last one that I'll say that we're actually going to be rolling out is community and subscription, right? For those who are on Apple Podcasts, you see that we create exclusive content, the after show, and you can purchase that through Apple Podcasts. So by me saying that, are you creating extra content that can be sold in a subscription base, right? Because your community, the people who listen to you every single episode, watches your lives, checks out your content on social media, wants to have more of a connection to you and get to know you more. So on the after show, we do that. But now we're transitioning into starting up a subscription base to where you get the audio and the video, and then there's going to be a section to where you could be a producer of the show where you may be able to add topics into it and we'll give you credits for that, right? So creating exclusive content and putting that as well as the podcast, people do pay for. It's called the community, right? So these are just different ways that not only we've, monetized through these past 100 episodes, but that's something that you can put into play for your journey of podcasting because you're going to realize, okay, doing this every week is cool, but it's costly because we got hosting fees, we got equipment we got to buy, we got editing we have to do. It's costly at a certain point. So you're going to want to know how to monetize and the business side of podcasting. Just saying.
Yeah, no, that's important. That's important. Yeah, and I will say track your numbers. That's one of those things that is very important to it. It can start off as a hobby, and it feels that it's fun. Like I got my podcast, and I'm as much as you can. Even if the topics that you're talking about, they are things that are what you're truly passionate about. They are your hobbies, or you didn't think that they can be monetized on, or you couldn't monetize them. You'll be surprised. There are people who monetize any and everything, right? From all types of topics. It's not just things related to business that, oh, because it's business, that means there's money involved. No, there's money involved in everything, sports and gambling and entertainment and business, and so everything. So I will say, do treat it with that cognizant that, okay, maybe I'm not big right now, but when I do, how will I respond?
Right. I love that. And for the people who are like, wait, y'all doing exclusive content? What do we do? Listen to me. In the show notes, in the description, there's going to be a waiting list to get into our, we're starting a Patreon. Sorry. We're starting a Patreon, people. But to get first dibs on it, and when it comes out, you got to be on the waiting list. So that's in the show notes and the description. So go check that out. But let's talk about planning the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that, because people are like, okay, I gotta, do I batch create? Do I have the topics at hand first? Oh my God, how long does it take to research? Let's talk about planning the podcast episodes. We've done 100. You know what I mean? We've done 100 episodes. A lot of planning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think just to go from what was difficult to what became a little bit easier, what I used to do was the day of recording, just take as much time as I can, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes up to 4 hours, trying to speed watch and speed listen all of the different things that are out there that I thought were relevant. And I realized that you really don't get the best information that way, because you're almost trying to meet a deadline, as opposed to thinking, okay, what's relevant, what's trending, what's important, and what do people need to know or learn about based on who our specific audience is. So what I'm doing now is I'm paying attention to what's happening throughout the weeks, and I will save things or highlight them. You know, if they're on Instagram, I'll just save them. Or DM them to myself. Right. So those are some of the ways that I will almost remind myself and have like a rolling catalog of what I think can be some potential topics for the week. The same thing on YouTube. Believe it or not, YouTube is one of those spaces for me where I spend most of my time on. So even when I look at my, phone's use time or whatever, I typically spend way more time on YouTube than I do on any other social media platform. So that's been the easier way for me to prepare for the show or for the episode. It's to look at some of those concepts and try and, find a balance in there. For a while, it was, oh, here's what I'm passionate about. And that sometimes is important too. You want to put some things in there that you're like, oh, this person set a bar and I think it's going to be phenomenal to be talked about. It almost creates like a debate, or let's see how we can run it. But for sure, I think the best way to plan or prepare is to do it throughout the week instead of taking one full day to just cram everything. And you have to then record later that day or that evening, depending on when your recording schedule is. But for sure, that's just been some of my ways of bringing some things together.
Mine's would be, before, just like how Moo said, researching the day of is the worst thing you can do. Worst thing, right? Yeah. I get it. Sometimes life hits you. That's what you got. But it becomes very difficult and makes your episode feel super rushed if you do it that way. I think finding proper timing, if you have to do research. Some podcasts is just straight conversation. Let's see how this goes and flows. Shout out to S2S Podcast. They do that all the time. They get together and they're like, go through your phone. What conversation did you have today? Oh, we'll go through that. Let's talk about that and let's make that into a lesson, right? Of course, it depends on like your podcast. For us, we talk about, different topics, different brands, different influencers. So we're going to have to find probably for me, time throughout the week to research, time throughout the week to grab the piece of content and kind of clip it up exactly the way we want it, right? Also respecting the originator as far as not putting too much of their content on our own platform, but getting the meat and potatoes of it, because our whole concept is showing you the blueprint and then showing you how it applies to your own brand and business, right? And so that's going to take a few days. So one of the things as far as planning it out is, Monday through, because we record on Saturdays, Fridays or Saturdays, latest Sunday mornings. Just the latest. That's it, right? But so probably Monday through Thursday, I'm going through YouTube. That's my main thing, because I consume content through video, right? I do listen to podcasts, which will make me go to the video if I hear something dope, right? So I'm going through YouTube through those days. Friday, I'm probably starting to chop them up, right? I'm starting to use Notion a little bit more as far as for my YouTube consumption and note taking, right? So I'll put the video, I'll put the timestamps, everything. So it's just like a running log of the things that I do, because it could be used. I may not use it that week, but it could be something as cool that I go back to, that I realize that I was watching so much that there was something that was so dope and I wanted to go back to it and I couldn't remember when, where, when did I watch it. So now making sure I have a running log of the topics of the videos that I've watched, what we've talked about, that kind of whole nine. So that has really helped with the planning. And then, of course, understanding the flow that we're going to have. Are we going to get into like a personal conversation? These past, I would say, I don't know, starting at episode 80 or something, it was like things that inspired me. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the Jay-Z information, the understanding situation. Let's talk about this thing. Let's talk, starting it off on a more personal side, because I realize that as we get more and more in these later episodes, people want to know more about us. Right. And so I'll be the guinea pig of that. Hey, this is what I like. Let's talk about it. Let's do this. Why? Because I am in a stage of, and I'll say wherever I am in my mind and things like that, to kind of reel Moose's side of it as well. And you get to hear a little bit more. So planning that out. When is it cool? Not necessarily cool, but when do we both feel comfortable giving a little bit more than just what we normally do? That stuff got to get planned out. It's not just about, that particular episode of that week. It is more about what are we doing for when we started the 10th episode, the 22nd episode, everything from what are we showing? When are we transitioning to a new format? When are we upgrading our equipment? That's all part of the planning process when it comes to the podcast episodes, because it all affects the vibe of each episode.
Yeah. No, that's important. I mean, and it's funny because I'm thinking that on the back end of 100 episodes, there's a lot of different seasons that each of us have gone through, right? We've gone through good seasons and bad seasons and transition seasons and seasons of what's next. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happens through that. And I think when you're doing a podcast with someone else, you're not always going to be on the same page as far as, oh, I feel super expressive in this season, so I'm going to tell my whole life to everyone, Well, maybe the other person doesn't feel that way. And I think that's okay. It's actually sometimes provides the balance that people need to hear, because it may connect with those who are more open and expressive and those who like to keep certain things private. I think in the beginning, I was super open and I was super out there, at least to my standards. And I just felt that was unnecessary. And so I'm like, okay, now reel it back in here. Let's make sense of this a little bit. And let's get some direction. Just be telling people what you ate for breakfast for no good reason. It's like you gotta have some method to it. So, I think that's okay. But I did want to ask, looking back on 100 episodes, are there any things that you would change or do differently?
Better
considering
Wi-Fi.
just. Damn.
I would move.
Wi-Fi.
I would take Carl's idea and move and leave Cox Cable. Okay, this is now another go round of 2-3 weeks of inconsistent Wi-Fi. Now, the first time we talked about it on the podcast, that I was very frustrated. They came, they fixed it. I got DMs, I got calls. They're like, hold on. Now, once again, when you create your own platform, it has impact, right?
Yeah.
So when I first talked about Cox Cable, they took care of it. Shout out to the followers who like, yo, no, Nicky, we're going to get this taken care of, right? I work there. I'm there. Like, cool. Here we are again, right? Because they did right. They, the bill situation was taken care of. Yeah. The bill situation was taken care of. The second that it was up, I knew something was going to happen. They like, oh, took care of our responsibilities. Then the inconsistency came back. And I'm like, all right, you know what? Maybe it's this week. You know what? I understand tech issues. We can't control that, right? Okay. Then we're getting into 2 weeks of the same situation. Then we got into a whole day of the situation. I said, I need to leave Cox Cable. Verizon, Vios, can you come to my house? Because when I looked it up, you didn't come to my house. Can somebody in Verizon change that? Can somebody with really stable Wi-Fi change that?
Help me! Help me!
I'm plugged in. It's not even a Wi-Fi. Maybe get off Wi-Fi. You need a hard wire. I don't want to hear it. Okay?
Right.
That was what I would change. I would change my Wi-Fi situation. And if I can't, I would have moved. I would move. Y'all tell me where I should move, because I am tired of this Wi-Fi situation.
Dedication.
Dedication. I would move.
Yeah. It's crazy, because I remember when I moved to this new place, I had Verizon Fios. And they were like, hey, you got the best internet. I don't know why you're still having internet issues. And eventually it ended up being my laptop. My laptop was the issue. So I was like, oh, goodness, thank God. When I decided to upgrade, I think it was like the end of last year. So now I'm doing everything and just swapped out. And ever since then, hardly any Wi-Fi issues. I'll still run the wire just to be safe anyway. But that was a blessing. So sometimes it's not your Wi-Fi. Sometimes it is your janky computer. You might want to want to replace that too.
But it was definitely my Wi-Fi. It was trash. Yeah. But we got questions from our people, and I want to answer that. So shout out to the people who were on the Instagram and asked these questions. And listen, we may do kind of like random question spots, but like I said, once the Patreon comes out, we're gonna have podcast producers who are going to be able to tell our topics and questions and things like that. So wait for that. But we got some questions. So first one comes from Aaron. When did you feel like you have the flow of ECAMM down for how you wanted the show? I would have to say, like, by the time we did the podcast. So, for those who don't know, we had a Facebook Live show to see if this would work or not. Like, let's do this for a few. Let's see if we could rock out with this at that time we did it twice a week. We ain't had nothing but time. We had nothing but time.
That.
Yeah, we did it twice a week.
I forgot about the
we did a whole two lives, twice a week. I want to say for like 6 weeks. It was a lot of weeks. It was a good amount of time, right? Just to get the flow of things, see how the videos would work, the intro, the whole nine. So by the time we did the podcast, I understood the flow of ECAMM really good. Now, as far as the flow of the podcast, it's consistently changing, right? We're not stuck on one type of format. Like Moose said earlier, we were doing the breakdowns. And to be honest with you, the breakdowns just got unrealistic because some of the people we wanted to talk about don't really do interviews.
Yeah.
So it would be a 10-minute episode, which, you know what? We could possibly do that for the exclusive content for the Patreon people.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We may be able to do some breakdowns over there, 10, 15-minute joints, based off some of the things that had happened and what are happening for specific people. But the ECAMM situation was easy. Moves from your end as far as like dealing with ECAMM, because we introduced Moose to ECAMM. Now his Zooms and everything like that. That's another thing, people. ECAMM is not only just for like this whole podcast situation. You could use it on your Zooms, Google Meets, any kind of virtual meeting. Of course, live streaming, that whole nine. But Moose, as far as like how you finally like felt comfortable joining the ECAMM, like there's some lag sometimes. Like talk about that.
Yeah. No, I mean it's pretty easy. I probably need to do a better job of maximizing it. I saw one of the commercials, I think sometime earlier this week actually, and I was like, man, I should probably start running my slides through ECAMM. Like I shouldn't be on Zoom. You know, like there's some unique looks that you can really bring to the presentations through it. So ECAMM has been pretty simple, especially just from my side, right? Because again, Nicky's really producing much of the show. So not only is she contributing to the show and speaking on the podcast, but she's also producing it live while we're streaming. So for me, the most part, I'm just here. Like literally what you see, that's what I do for a full hour. I just show up. But she is more involved on that side. But for me, it's pretty easy. So if you're on this side of the spectrum where, you just got to plug in, I will say one of the things that was a game changer too, though, was the cam link. To be able to connect the camera to the computer to get that stream. Yep. There was a difference in the quality of the video as well as the quality of the stream when I had that cam link versus when you just connect the camera directly to the computer through USB. Yep. So that was a game changer for sure.
Yeah, sure. All right. Shout out to another Aaron. Hello. What has been your biggest takeaway on the road to 100 episodes? Let me just keep saying let's talk about it, right? Moose?
Yeah, that it's only getting started. It's crazy to be so deep into something and realize that it's just getting started. I think that for some reason, I'll probably just speak on, at least on my experience, I didn't fully see what is out there or what else was happening until like recently, where I was like, wait, that came about because of a podcast, and that came about technically through some form of audio or media related, opportunity. So I think really seeing that there is tremendous opportunity out there. There's no limitation. There is no just set number of things to do. And that even you could be so deep into something, yet still technically be at the beginning of it. So I think 100 just shows that, okay, we're serious, we're dedicated, we're committed to it. But in a lot of ways, I think, oh no, we're just getting started. You know, we talked about earlier this week, hey, which route are we taking it? Do we want to go the media network route? Do we want to go in this direction? So I think when I think about those things, that gets me pretty hyped just about the opportunity that we can add, or the value that we can add by continuing down the show.
Agreed. For me, I think the biggest takeaway would be realizing that we have a very successful body of work of content.
Yeah.
Like what people don't understand is, like, by us recording once a week, right? It produces multiple pieces of content for both of us, from his side and my side, and then of course a collective, to where you could look back and it's like, oh snap, they've been doing this for a while. Like, they have well over 7 hours of stuff. Like, this is crazy. So I think the biggest takeaway is, through just recording just once a week, how impactful that is to create a body of work.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest takeaways. I mean,
That's huge.
when life got tough, what made you want to keep recording?
Man, I don't know. On the live, I spoke to it and I said it was pride, but I gotta say, just a commitment. You know, I can't ever imagine you make a commitment to something, and you know, of course, the correct thing here to say is, oh well, the audience and the people who watch or listen, and of course, to a large extent, that is absolutely true. I am committed to you all who listen and watch and support, and super grateful for it. Thank you. Thank you for listening and watching and continuing to support. Please continue to do so.
However, comma.
No, but in addition to, and
Okay,
this is,
I like that.
in addition to, man, I think it's important that you be committed to yourself. You know, how could you say that, hey, this is what I'm going to do every week, and you get okay with breaking a promise that you said that you were going to follow through on? So I've come on here after medical emergencies, COVID, dental surgeries. I'm on here with a little under the weather today even. But you just kind of get through the rhythm. I think it's super important to say, not only am I committed to people who are going to support, what I'm doing, but I made a commitment to myself, and I don't want to break that commitment. So to be on that run, you don't want to be the person that breaks the streak to say, oh, I don't want to record this week. It's like, what? You don't want to record? Like, get over yourself. Figure it out. I'm not saying like, hey, you shouldn't take care of your mental health and all of those things. They're super important. I cannot skate over that. But you should never allow an emotion to chokehold you so much that you feel you shouldn't do something that, you made a commitment to. There are workarounds. I mean, of course, we've talked about it openly, where we may have recorded an interview, so we're able to take off a week. But I don't think we've ever went a week, 2 weeks without recording? Probably the most was 2 weeks, because during like a holiday period, we had 2 interviews lined up and they went out back to back. Yeah. But we still did the live or something. Yeah. So I think for me, it's that commitment too.
For me, when things got tough, the podcast was a healthy outlet. So if I have to make a commitment to something, I try to make it a healthy outlet, because it allows me to be distracted from the real world. So I look forward to doing the podcast. The only times I don't necessarily look forward to doing the podcast is when I don't have anything, I can't figure it out, like what to talk about. But it's not that I don't want to be on the podcast. I just don't know what to talk about on the podcast. So we were just going to just talk at some points because I just didn't have anything, right? But I never in my, my hard times, I didn't necessarily look at going to the podcast like, oh, I don't want to do it. Oh, this is good. God, this is trash. Like, no, it was more of like, no, this is a distraction, and the same way as content can be a distraction for others, creating it is a distraction for me.
Man, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and I will say, I genuinely enjoy this. I actually enjoy this. Yeah, I'm really passionate about the idea of teaching and connecting and using information to help bridge the gap and get people over the craziness that happens in the real world. I think this is a cool way of doing it. So that does help too, to be honest with you. It never feels like a burden because of that. It's like, it's like, okay, I have to do it because of that too. I enjoy it. It's something that I like to do.
Big facts. What is one thing you both underestimated about the journey to 100 episodes?
Yeah, I won't say that it's, I can't say, like, I can't point to something and say that I underestimated, but I just can't say I accounted for, the growth of each individual. I spoke to it a little bit earlier where I said, everyone goes through their different seasons, and that you can't plan for that. You can't say, okay, well, when Nicky is going through this, how are we going to do that? And when I'm going through that, how are we going to do this? It's like, you can't plan for those things. But I think it's one of the things that I've learned to work with, and really, best thing I've done for myself, man, is I've gotten a hold of my emotions. Like this, I don't know why at any moment we felt that introverts don't have emotions, but that is the furthest thing from the truth. It was just such a bad piece of information that I bought into. And then I realized, some 2 years into it, it's like, dude, you have been suppressing so much of what you've been feeling because this idea, oh, but you don't have emotions. You're not an emotional person. It's like, well,
right.
That's not true. Like it was just bad information. So I'm working off of bad information and digging into a deeper situation that isn't necessarily healthy. So I think the best thing I've done for myself is being able to work through all of that and now realizing that everything is just a conversation. It's you got to make it a point to reach out and connect and work through whatever you feel is necessary so that you can still be in line despite of what's happening independently. Because, sometimes it's also this like false expectation of what a show should sound and feel like. It's like, where do these ideas come from? And I don't know that we are ever cognizant or conscious of those things. We just think that, oh, no, that's the way. It's like, no, there is no way. There are no rules to this thing, but there are good practices. There are some healthy ways to go about it. So, I will say, I think for me, it was learning that, okay, people are going to grow and you should continue to grow too. Like that's important. All of that is a part of the process. So it's been helpful to get to that place where, in a good mental state and not allowing things to, get the best of you out of no reason. Because a lot of times they're not even connected to anything that is related to the podcast. It's like something might happen. This is like on Wednesday, and then like you're coming on a podcast. It's like, wait, bro, it has nothing to do with the podcast. This is what happened on a random Wednesday. It's like, it's crazy. So that's, in short, I will say, man, heal. Keep saying that, heal. It's always going to benefit you in what you're doing.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get more questions on these things because he opens up for that one. Let me look at this one more time because you went. I was just amazed that you were talking like that. Yay!
Yeah.
What's one thing you both underestimated? Underestimated the impact. I will say that I underestimated the impact. I thought, and we see it when we go to different events, like, yo, I love the podcast. And I don't know how a podcast listener is supposed to look, right? But I'd be always amazed when, like, you listen to it? Really? You? Like, I didn't know you listen to things like that. Right. So, yo, I love you on the podcast. I love, where's Moose? Yo, I remember we went to the 360 event, and there was this one person, you probably hearing this and you know exactly who I'm talking about. But there was one person like, yo, where's Moose? Tell him to come outside. Like, I didn't see him yet. I see you, but what, like, he like did not care about me anymore. He was like, yo, I saw you already. Like, let me get Moose, right? I'm like,
That's funny.
I almost felt like I need to protect. No, you're not going to see Moose. You seem a little too aggressive. I'm not
Right.
actually. I found him. I was like, yo, can you please go outside? Like, can you say hi to people? Because they're hunting me down to find you, right? So I underestimated, after you do something over and over and over and over again, there's at least one person that's going to be impacted. I'm not going to sit here and say hundreds and hundreds of people, even though in our case, yes, but the one or two people that come up to me and be like, yo, the podcast, wow. I'm like, I didn't know you listened. So yeah, definitely the impact. And the last question of the episode, how to get on your show. Okay. All right.
What's the criteria? What is the criteria for this Nicky and Moose show?
So I'm gonna be honest with you, because Moose has input, but I normally have the conversations to make sure they come on and everything like that. We have to know you. We have to know you. Like, if you understand the theme that we have, which is that we break down, successful personal brands and influencers and how they did stuff so we can do it ourselves, and not we as me and Moose, but like all of us as a collective. You already have to have something established, right? This is not, and maybe later on, and I'm not shutting it down. I'm actually trying to work it out in my head as far as how do we create a discovery mode for upcoming personal brands, right? So that is something that is being, formulated and figure out how that's going to work. But to get on as a guest, we have to know you and see that you've built something that we can be able to break down, right? All the guests we personally know, right? And if I don't necessarily, and I'm the trustworthy one. Moose always makes fun of me. I will give you my social security. Like, shout out to Aaron, because they're on this whole, we need to get you a VA, right? I'm like, okay, all right. I'm not gonna dispute it no more. All right, give me a virtual assistant. I don't want no parts of it. Why do I don't want no parts of it? Because I trust too easily. Okay,
Right.
I will say yes to the first person. Yeah, you seem great. If you could hold a conversation with me, I'm for it. Hello, yes, get it. Okay, it costs $200 an hour. Okay, because I just trustworthy, right? Like, I believe you. That's the rate. People will be like, dumb fool. No, that's not. Oh, so I understand now. I have a vetting system, right? But I say all that because we have to know you personally, have conversations with you. So if you want to get on the show, create a relationship with one of us.
Yeah.
Build something, right, that we could break down. And we'll get you on the show until we get to that point where we create a segment to where you could discover upcoming personal brands and influencers. We're going to have that, but we just have to figure out strategically how that is so it doesn't feel ungenuine to our audience. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
did I hit that? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's solid. I mean, I will just say, like, remember, man, that behind the cameras and the internet and social media, it's real people, real relationships. So I will say that there's not one person that we brought on that we didn't have a relationship with, right? A professional relationship. We're not saying like we're just bringing on friends, because I've actually had a couple people reach out on hey, we're friends, so like when am I going to be on the podcast? Yeah, for sure.
Oh, shout out to them. Shout out.
Yeah, and I just say, like, hey, like I the only way to survive in this game is to be intentional about keeping business. What is business, and what is personal is personal. It's important for longevity. So it's like I don't dabble in that. I mean, if the stars line up, or not the stars line up, I'm not trying to make it seem like it would never happen, but that seems like way too far. It's like, oh, in the long shot.
If the stars line up.
Yeah. No, but if what I'm saying is if it makes sense, right? Where it's actually called for and it's lined up and it makes sense, by all means. But I don't want it to, just seem like I'm doing a favor or something like that. So I will say behind the internet is relationships, real people, real human connection. So yeah, do something and build a relationship.
AKA be our friends.
Be our friends. Oh God.
No, well, how about this? Don't be Moose's friend, because Moose don't let friends on. He just said
That's
don't
not
be
true.
Moose's friend. You gotta
That's not true.
be a business friend. Don't be a friend. Friends don't get on. Business friends that are actually
friends.
doing something. Like shout out to like our circle. Our circle is actually doing things. So I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? You're creating this. You've done this successful. Cool. Come on, right? You're my friend. Cool, right? Moose is like, nope, if you're friends. Look, I'll be honest. I have like a few friends that I didn't even consider.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to be mean, but I'm just saying that's a personal relationship. So I don't want to feel obligated to bring you onto the show because we're personal friends. That's not fair to me or you. Yeah. It's like I'm doing you a favor because we're friends. Where, like, I don't know. Let me stop saying before I say something.
I don't want to get him in trouble. But really, to break it all the way down, we've brought on people that have built something, that have a proven blueprint, and that we can all learn from. Stats show it. And it's not always about money. It's really about what have they grown that has created impact as well. So if you've done that, and we know you, or you are very intentional with the relationships that you're creating, or somebody can vouch for you. Hello, that's another one. Because shout out to Sean, who was on this podcast. He suggested a guest, and I'm looking at the person like, okay, you were on Lewis House. Let's start looking a little bit and seeing if our audience would be cool with it, because our biggest thing is we have to protect the audience, right? We have to protect y'all and not be like, no shade to other podcasts, but we are not one of those payola situations where you pay and you get on the podcast, this, that, and the third. It's not in that situation. It's more of, yo, do you have something that we can learn from? Point blank, period. And that's it.
Yeah, that's right.
There it is. So people, that is our journey of 100 episodes. Pretty much, AKA a mastermind of podcasting. To to be honest, right? Like we said, the Patreon is coming. Okay, the Patreon is coming. You got to get on the waiting list to get access to it. So that is going to be in the show notes. That's going to be in the description. The after show, the people who are subscribed to the after show, they had first dibs as far as getting on the waiting list. So those people are going to get first, right? That's a whole separate
Totally
email.
right.
Yeah. It's a whole separate email. But follow us everywhere. Shout out to everybody who listens to us in the audio and a video standpoint. Moose, final words.
Yeah, I mean, you know what?
He's like,
I had no. Let me stop. Because just in case this comes out, it's got to look serious. It's got to look deep. It's got to look like
Isaiah,
I was
cut
really
from here. Go.
When I'm not smiling, it's got to look deep. But
no, mommy doesn't like you when you don't smile. She likes the personality.
She likes the smiling moves.
Yes, she's like, you be too serious.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yes.
But I just feel like when you're smiling and you're saying something deep, it's like you're joking. It's like, well, are you trying to say something deep or are you trying to joke? Because I don't get it.
Okay.
It's like
That's
throwing me
fair.
off.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Well, this one is not going to be a serious one. I don't think I can contain the smile at this point. It's a little late for that. But
Okay.
I will say this, man. Take a chance on yourself. For real, take a chance on yourself. We're 100 episodes in because we took a chance. We started at something where it was like, hey, could this work? I don't know, but let's just do it. All right. You will learn more even from what you consider a loss than learn what you'll learn from just sitting on the sidelines planning a perfect plan. So take a chance. You never know where you'll end up.